2.2, factoring quadratics. This is 5.2.2, factoring quadratics when a is equal to 1. When a is equal to 1, it's a fairly easy problem. And we're going to go through these today and tomorrow and probably have a quiz on Friday. Okay? First thing I want you to do is write these rules down. Okay, they won't make a whole lot of sense for you, but go ahead and write them down now so that when we do a problem or do some examples, you'll know what to expect. Step number 1, I know it's difficult to see on the camera there. Step number 1 is GCF. We talked about that Monday and Tuesday. GCF is the greatest common factor. If the problem has a GCF, you always take that out first. That is always your first step. Everybody say GCF. GCF. You must be thinking GCF, 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 GCF. Okay, because they'll do 9 problems that don't have a GCF, and then they'll do one that does. You took a quiz over GCF, most of you made 100. Everybody should know what a GCF is and how to take it out. Step number 2, look at the second sign. Step number 3, look at the first sign. Step number 4, look at A. Step number 5, look at C. And I'm going to add and factor. Step number 6, solve the X. You know, product and sum. Be thinking of what 2 numbers multiply to give me this number, what 2 numbers add to give me this number. And then step number 7 is check. By FOIL. F-O-I-L. FOIL. First, outside, inside, last. I'll give you just a second to copy that down. Step number 6 is solve the diamond. Right? Solve the diamond problem. Just like you got done doing on that worksheet. I want you to do the evens tonight because it's good practice in thinking on how to solve this, how to factor. The method that we are using is called the guess and check method. You might want to write that down. This is called the guess and check method. Alright, first step. If the quadratic looks like this, x squared plus 2x plus 1. If the quadratic looks like this, x squared minus 2x plus 1. If the quadratic looks like this, x squared minus 2x minus 3. Here's 3 examples. We're going to go through the signs first because you have to know what to do with the signs first. All right, what's step number 1? You've already written them down. What's step number 1? GCF. Do any of these have a GCF? Yes or no? No, no GCF. Everybody say no loudly. No, no GCF, right? There's no GCF on any of these. So we move to the step number 2. What does step number 2 say? It says, this is just generic, it says look at the second sign. Your eyes look right there, right? Right there. They look at this second sign because that sign is going to tell you what to do next. Okay? If that sign is positive, then that means the 2 symbols are the same. Write that down. The 2 symbols are the same. What does same mean?
They're the same.
They are both positive or they are what? Both negative. They have to be the same. They are alike. You have 2 parentheses and they are the same. Okay? Then step number 3 says look at the first symbol. So here's the first symbol. Here's the second symbol. Here's the first symbol. If this one is positive, here's your example. If this one is positive, then our eyes look right here and this one's positive. What do you think is going to go in our parentheses if we have positive and positive? They're both positive. Exactly right. Guys, that works 100% of the time. That doesn't ever not work. Where do your eyes go first? They look at the second sign. If that symbol is positive, then you look at the first symbol. If the first symbol happens to also be positive, If both of these are positive, then both of these are positive. Okay? That works 100% of the time. All right, then we look here. Here's a different example. Our eyes look right here, and that's positive. What does that tell us? Everybody say it. If that one's positive, what does that tell us? They're the same. Either both positive or both negative. Why are both of these negative? Why? How is that one different than that one? The first symbol is a what this time? It's a negative. This one's positive and this one's negative. That tells me both my symbols happen to be negative. Where do your eyes go first? They go right there. If that's positive, then they're the same. I look right here. If that one's positive, then they're both positive. If this one happens to be negative, then they're what? They're both negative. The last example is if I look at the second sign right here, if my eyes look right here and that symbol happens to be negative. If it happens to be negative, then what do my signs have to be? What's the opposite of same? They have to be different. How can my two symbols be different? One has to be positive and one has to be negative. Doesn't matter which one's which. One's positive and one's negative. Guys, that's it. That's the only three options that you have in factoring a trinomial. I say it again. I'll say it again, I should say. If that's positive, then we look right here. If that's positive and that's positive, then they're both positive. If that's positive and that's negative, then they're both negative. If this symbol happens to be negative, then one's positive and one's negative. Questions?
What if the second sign's negative and the first sign's positive?
Say it again.
The second sign's negative, the first sign's positive.
If this is negative, then you don't even have to look here. Because there's different only means positive and negative. Now, are these the same thing? Yeah, they're the same thing. I think so too. Alright, so here's your first example. We'll do that one right there. X squared minus 9x plus 20. So we now understand how to do the symbols. What are the two symbols on this? What are they? Why are they both negative? Because that's positive and that's negative. They have to both be negative. So I do my parentheses and I immediately throw two negatives in there 100% of the time. Then step number 4 says look at A. Every problem this week, A is going to be equal to 1. So that makes this very easy. What are the only two things in the universe that I can multiply together to get x squared? I got two things and I multiply them together and I get x squared. What's the only thing that works? X and x. So this first spot has to be an x and this first spot has to be an x. X times x is how I get x squared. These two things get multiplied and I get that first spot. Because A is equal to 1, that's pretty easy. Okay? What are the only things that give us x squared? X times x. Okay? Alright, step number 5. What does it say? Read it. Read it. What does it say? You already have it written down. What does it say? Look at C. What is C in this problem? Positive 20. So in your head, you don't have to write this down, but in your head you're putting a 20 right there, and what are you putting down here? A negative 9. Right? What two numbers multiply to give you 20 and add to give you negative 9? Why do they have to be negative?
Because it's a positive 20.
You can't add.
Both of them are negative. They both got to be negative. One's got to be negative, the other one's got to be negative. When I multiply a negative times a negative, I get a positive. I get positive 20. When I add negative 5 and negative 4, I get negative 9. So 5 goes here and 4 goes here. Now sometimes you may have to break it down. It may not be so readily available in your brain. Right? What are the factors of 20? 20 and 1, 10 and 2, 5 and 4. That's it. Those are the only factors of 20, I think. And so you have to break down that number sometimes. If that number's a big number like 144, you might have to play around with the factors in order to figure out what works. Question.
Does it matter what order the numbers go in?
Great question. Is this the same as this?
Yes.
Why?
It's multiplication. Multiplication.
Is
Yeah.
outstanding answer. Say it again. Multiplication is commutative. Commutative means order doesn't matter. What else is commutative? Multiplication and addition. Is subtraction commutative? No, but addition and multiplication is commutative. 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. These two, if multiplied together, will give you this. These two, if multiplied together, will give you this. That's the definition of commutative. All right, last step. Number 7, what does it say? Check by FOIL. What does FOIL stand for? First, write it down. First, outside, inside, last. Write it down. First, outside, inside, last. Now, what in the world does that mean? I'll do this one right here. That means x times x is x squared. That means x times negative 5 is negative 5x. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x, and negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. What does negative 5x and negative 4x add up to? Negative 9x. Is that what I wanted? Yes. You have to check to make sure on every single problem that what you factored it into gives you the original equation. If there happens to be a GCF, if you would have multiplied a GCF, factored out a GCF, it would have to be right there. Write that in your notes. If there's a GCF, it has to go in front of the parentheses right there. This one didn't have a GCF, so there's no number there. But if in the first step we had pulled out a 3 or pulled out a 2, that number would have to go right there. If you left it off, you would miss it. You would get the wrong answer. Okay? All right, so are you ready to practice? You think you're good? You want me to do another exam? All right, let's find one that has a negative, not that one. There we go. N squared minus 4n minus 60. First step. Everybody say them. First step. GCF. First step. Say it. GCF. Second step. Look at the second sign. If this one's negative, what do? Instantly. They're opposites, meaning n plus and n minus. Why was I able to put the n's in there? Because a is equal to 1. When a is equal to 1, it's a piece of cake. There's no reason why you can't put n and n. That's the only thing that gives you n squared. Look how many blanks we have filled. There are 6 blanks, and how many blanks do we have filled? We got 4 out of the 6 already full. Now we look at the 60, right? Specifically, we do this, negative 60, and we try to figure out what goes here. But I'm going to say 60 like this, and I'm going to break it up. I'm going to say 60 and 1. I'm going to say 30 and 2. I'm going to say 15 and 4. I'm going to say 10 and 6. I'm going to say, is that it? How about 12 and 5? How about 3 and 20? Are those all my factors?
Yeah.
Which one of those factors has something at all to do with 4 right here? 10 and 6? How can I get 4 out of 10 and 6? 10 plus 6 is 16. That doesn't give you 4. How can 10 and 6 give you 4?
Negative 10.
Negative 10.
What kind of 4 do I want? I want a negative 4, right? So how do I manipulate my numbers, right? I know that this is what I want. How do I manipulate that to give me negative 4n in the middle? The 6 needs to be positive, and the 10 needs to be negative. Let's check that, and let me show you a shortcut. Really, to check, if you've set everything up, really the only thing you need to do to check is the O and the I. Make a smile. Do the outside and do the inside. The outside gives you negative 10n. The inside gives you positive 6n, which is negative 4n, and it checks.
Isn't there a GCF?
Mhm. 4. 6. No GCF.
4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6. 4. 6.
4 and 60 have a common term, but there's no common term right there. So there's no GCF. Good question though. Hannah?
Can you do one with the GCF?
Uh-huh. Any questions on this? Any questions on this one? What method are we using? If you went to tutoring and somebody said, what method are you using, what would you say?
Guess and check.
Guess and what?
Check.
Check. So is the check mandatory?
Yeah.
Yes, the check is mandatory. You don't get to skip the check. Let's try that one. 2r squared minus 12r plus 16. Do this one and then I'll let you practice on the whiteboards. First step. First step.
GCF.
What is the GCF? Positive 2. Right? 2, 12, 16. They all have a 2 in them. So I pulled 2 out. What's left?
R squared.
R squared. You did this yesterday on the quiz. What? Minus 6r. What?
Plus 8.
Plus 8. You did that on the quiz yesterday. All we did yesterday was GCF. GCF, GCF, GCF. Is A equal to 1 now?
Yes.
A is right here. A is equal to 1. And so this factors just like those previous examples. You follow your steps. Follow your steps. I'll work it out in 60 seconds. All right, you ready? First step. Our eyes go right there. If that's positive, what does that tell you? They're the same. If that one's positive, then I look right here. If that one's negative, then what are my symbols? Both of them are what? Negative. Negative, negative. I can go ahead and put R here and R here because A is equal to 1. Then I look at 8. What factors of 8 add up to 6?
2, negative 4.
2 and 4. I could put 4 and 2. Makes no difference because multiplication is commutative. My question is this the answer?
You gotta put the 2.
You have to put the 2. Why?
So GCF.
If I multiplied this together, would I end up with this? No, I wouldn't. Would I end up with that now? Yes. You must put the GCF right there. This is the final answer, right? We check it. Remember to check. Negative 4R, negative 2R gives me negative 6R, so it checks. Okay? The O and the I of FOIL is all you really have to do.